Everyone, welcome to Scale Up's Power Hour with Insperity, and sponsored by Insperity on HR. And Insperity is a company of HR and all things HR. So we welcome them. We've had a chance to talk to them, and we know that our businesses need information and resources and help, and this is our opportunity to give that. And Power Hours are essentially an opportunity to talk to experts in their field and give you those must-do, can't misses, and then allow you to have those Q&A questions that you've been trying to get in contact with someone in HR, or you just have questions, or you need a confident answer to something you already know. We do understand that, you guys are on your lunch break and you might be eating, but, we love to see your faces. If you can get off your camera, we would love that. If not, we totally understand. But if there's any questions while they are presenting, please put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them afterwards. And then I think for Wyatt and Phil, they'll kind of tell you how they want it. If you want to raise your hand or anything of that nature when the Q&A is going, I think feel free to do that as well. So here is Wyatt Dittburner and Phil Bidrow with Insperity.
Yeah, thanks, Deshaun. Thanks for having us today. We're really excited to do the Power Hour. Like Deshaun said, I'm Wyatt Dittburner. I'm a business performance advisor with Insperity here in Wauwatosa. And Phil is our district manager. He manages the entire state of Wisconsin. Our office works with the entire state of Wisconsin and really beyond. But like Deshaun alluded to, Insperity is an HR company, HR services, HR technology, employee benefits, and then kind of everything in between. We can be as broad or as deep as clients need based on where they're at in their life cycle and what issues they're faced with. As a quick introduction to kind of what we do, we partner with growing small and mid-sized companies. We help them scale up. We help them meet the HR and talent challenges that they're faced with today in today's business climate. We do have two comprehensive HR solutions, and they're really designed to meet companies where they're at today, at whatever inflection point they're at, and to help them in their business cycle have a really robust HR infrastructure, a really robust technology and benefits infrastructure, and to basically allow business owners, people who have startups, entrepreneurs, to get out of being stuck in the admin of their business and allow them to focus on what they do best, while also maintaining and giving them a really competitive edge in attracting and retaining the right talent, putting the right people on the right seats in the bus. Insperity's been around for about 36 years now, and we've been over here in our Wauwatosa for about 6 years. So that's kind of a quick rundown. I'll turn it over to Phil for a minute here.
Yeah, so when you think about starting a business and growing a business, most people's first thing is their product, their service delivery. They have a strategy behind that, right? And then they have a finance strategy, right? An IT strategy, a marketing strategy. And sometimes they don't really think about the people side of it, right? The people strategy, because you need the people to do all of the other things, right? And we're a firm believer that's very important into really growing your business, whether you're one employee, a solo entrepreneur, or you're already up to 10, 15 employees. I really like the way our CEO and founder of Insperity kind of talks to small businesses. I mean, entrepreneurs are America's greatest heroes, he says, and small businesses are really the heartbeat of our country. They make up the majority when you look at how many small businesses there are compared to how many large businesses there are. You as entrepreneurs take on huge risks. You have to overcome significant challenges. You have to apply a ton of creativity. You've got to pivot. If something's not going right, or you're not going down the path that maybe you dreamed about. And you have obligations, whether you have them today or not, you're going to have obligations to pay your employees. You're going to have obligations to pay rent, adhere to regulations, whether they're state, local, or federal. And nobody gives you the right to succeed. You have to earn it, right? It's not like you can just start a business and you're ultimately going to succeed. I mean, it's up to you guys, to earn it. And it's really important to think about like your strategy overall, and the people are really what makes the business succeed, as long as you have obviously your strategies in place. Our mission statement at Insperity is to help businesses succeed so that the community prospers, right? So that really is why I work for Insperity. It was relevant 36 years ago when they started the organization, and it's relevant today. If companies are able to grow and thrive in the communities, they're able to employ, they're able to finance the growth of an individual's individual life or their family's life. They're able to, when you make enough money, you can give back to the community, whether it's through philanthropy or whatnot. So it really is important to us.
Yeah, that's great. And Phil, I'm glad that you mentioned our mission statement, because I do think that this concept of helping businesses succeed so the communities prosper is just as, if not more relevant here in our Milwaukee business community than many places in the world, especially just seeing like the growth and change that we've all seen in Milwaukee and the greater Southeast Wisconsin area, really in the last 10 years. It's been remarkable. But, for our perspective and our scope today in this conversation, it really all starts with culture. So we believe that in your company, wherever you're at in your life cycle, your culture is either by default or it's by design. And if it's not intentionally by design, then probably you're going to end up having a culture by default, and you lose a lot of control there. And people are not aligned with your mission, vision, and values from the start. So in smaller companies and startups, hiring, trying to retain and attract the talent, it's really important for those folks to hire not just for skills that they immediately see, in a resume or in an interview, but you're hiring for culture. Who are the people that are going to fit your culture that you are seeking to actively and really proactively design while you're building your company? If you have one leader, if you have multiple leaders in the company, you want to make sure everyone's aligned on the same vision, on the same values, and that's where you really start to create the culture so that new folks coming in, you know how to spot them, you know how to identify them and bring them in as a good cultural fit. And I think this is really important for startups, because you really have sort of a golden opportunity as a startup, as a smaller business, to draft your own roadmap, to really create this by design. And I think right along with that, you also want to keep in mind that you hire for potential and not just skills. So it's easy as you're putting out job descriptions, as you're posting job openings, as you're reviewing resumes. Keep in mind the bigger picture, the 30,000-foot view. Are they going to fit your culture? And what potential do they have to grow right alongside of you in your company? Not just, how good are they at an Excel spreadsheet? Not to say that's not important, but there is a bigger picture to keep in mind here.
Yeah, and on that note, and I've started 4 businesses in my career. Some I was the founder, some I was a partner, et cetera. And, first people you look at is, who do you know, right? It could be family members, it could be friends, former colleagues, because you know enough about them to kind of trust them and hope that they do a good job. But, eventually you're going to have to hire somebody you've never met before, right? Either they applied for the job or they were referred to you. And it's important not only to like Wyatt said, interview for skills and potential, but, one of the things that, challenges small businesses is when they hire somebody that comes out of a big company, right? Because if you think about it, they're used to having all the resources at their fingertips and people to go to for everything that they need. And a lot of times they don't have to wear a lot of hats. Obviously, as an entrepreneur and as new employees of a small business, you got to wear every hat. And, you might be doing finance, but you're helping with marketing, you're helping with products, you're helping with, service. You might even be helping with, cleaning up the office. Who knows, right? Like, you have to do a lot, and people have to be willing to do that, and that's important. And then when you're thinking about hiring that next employee, whether it's your first, your fifth, your 10th, the word like attracting and retaining talent kind of gets tossed around a lot, but in many instances it's not really taken serious. And it's important to make a good hire, and look at other top performers in your company, look at yourself, why are you successful, why are they successful, what are their intangibles. The biggest thing that can hurt a business as you're getting up and running is turnover. The national statistic, and this comes from the Society of Human Resources Management, it's been consistent for decades, is about the cost of turnover is about 1.77 times the salary. So if you think about it, if somebody's making 50 grand a year, it's really costing you about 80 grand a year, right? Or actually $77,000 a year to replace that person, because you've got to start looking again. You've got to hire them. You've got to train them. So it's taking time away from you, and it's it just can be an ongoing kind of vicious cycle if you don't get it right. You're going to make mistakes, but it's important to really be thoughtful in that process and have a goal as to what you really need and who you want to hire, and then make sure they're a good fit, with your vision and the culture you're trying to design. Another piece is, you're probably not at the point where you're offering benefits. Maybe you are, but when you get to that point, employees will take a job, and they'll also leave a job for benefits. Typically the first thing they think about when they're looking for a job is how much does it pay, and what kind of benefits do they offer, especially if you're hiring somebody that's 26 or older and they're not able to get benefits through their parents anymore. And it's an expense. It's a large expense. But when you think about the cost of turnover or losing that top performer, sometimes it's important. So, strategizing with a partner like Insperity or, a broker you trust on what kind of benefits you can offer is really important when you think about scaling your business.
Yeah, kind of to get a little more granular, Phil, you mentioned someone who's maybe older than 26. Realistically, understanding generation gaps is going to become far more important as you all are looking to hire. Obviously millennials are here in the workforce. They're making up a large portion of the workforce now, but also it's starting to become Gen Z as well. And there's some real differences here. What motivates millennials is pretty different than what motivated Generation X before millennials. Generation X was a little more of that kind of put your head down, come into work, a little bit of lonerism, go hour by hour. Obviously, these are gross generalizations, but we can kind of extract information from it. Whereas a lot of millennials have a tendency to question authority and question processes in the workplace. If any of you were at the presentation by Corey Nettles a little while back here at Scale Up, he had some interesting stories from his firsthand experience in working for millennials. And I thought it was interesting to hear what he had to say about it, how he handles it. I think, like he mentioned, a lot of employers can see millennials as having a certain sense of entitlement, a certain sense of entitlement to employment positions. Some of those benefits that Phil was talking about, there is this expectation among millennials that that's something that they're going to have, and so they're really looking for that when they're looking at their employment, who they're going to work with, who they're going to work for, what's their job description. And then my understanding is we're really starting to see this change with the younger generation and Generation Z. Generation Z is really schedule oriented, really routine oriented. A lot of these folks grew up with really booked schedules from a young age, this event, this activity, this sport, school, and not a lot of breaks in between these things. So from early data that we've seen, it looks like they tend to have a little stronger, or at least classically stronger work ethic than some millennials. But another downside there is a lot of them are a little more emotionally immature because they've had this really booked up schedule and not a lot of time to kind of like be on their own and get into a little bit of trouble, that sort of thing. So there's all these nuances that are between generation gaps. But I do think if you're looking to hire the right talent, it's really important to keep this stuff in mind, because as you're drafting your job description, as you're thinking about your benefits package, or even flexibility of schedule, you need to know who your audience is that you're speaking to.
Yeah, and on that note, it's when you think into the future, it's kind of understanding, DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's critical to have a diverse workforce, not necessarily just gender or race, but it's sometimes a mindset. It's an approach to work. It's an approach to the entrepreneurial side of things. Do they have a firm belief in what you're trying to accomplish? Do they problem solve in different ways? Hiring people that are just like you might not always help you get to the results that you're looking for, right? It might not be the best way to problem solve. So sometimes it's good to hire people that are able to kind of tackle the things that maybe you're not as good at, right? And it's good to evaluate really the overall impact of having that diverse kind of workforce. It's hard to really tell who's going to be successful and who's not, and how effective you're doing at kind of evaluating talent based on skill sets and probability of success and, problem solving skills and, the ability to fit in from a cultural standpoint. But it's really important long-term, I think operationally, culturally, it really leads to, collaboration, it leads to a cohesive work environment, where people feel equal.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I mean, obviously, one part of that equation that's really difficult is just the recruiting strategy, right? For especially for smaller companies, for startups, it can be tough to recruit. So, when you're thinking of recruiting and finding the right talent, it's easy to first think of like people right? So you can start with family, but you're going to want to be cautious with this. That could be a tricky one to maneuver, especially if there's negotiations over salary, terms of employment, that kind of thing. You can also look for internal referrals. If you already have some employees, especially employees who are high performers, who really fit your culture nicely, talk to them. Who do they know? It's likely they're going to spend professional and personal time with other people that are similar to them, and maybe share their values, and maybe possibly share their skills. But it is great. That's a great, easy way and cost-effective way for younger companies to really create awareness. And another thing you can do is you can offer a reward. If you've got a great employee and they have a great friend or associate, just anything like that, you can work some kind of reward. You can get creative with this into their compensation, so it really sweetens the deal for them and sees to it that you're getting more people who have values that align on the bus. Obviously, you can go to local networks. You can go to like trade organizations that might be relevant to you, business organizations, business memberships. You can join these groups. Yeah, especially in the early phases, this can be an effective way of recruiting. You can, if you've worked at a larger company in the past, you can look to past employers. Obviously, you want to be aware of any non-compete you might have signed or any terms of employment. Networking, there's a lot of networking event opportunities here throughout the Milwaukee area. So a lot of these can be great. Just anything that's relevant where you think like-minded people with different types of backgrounds might be there, and you can talk to them and have like a really organic start to the relationship.
Yeah, and as you're growing your business, some of you may be networking on a regular basis, and you may be networking, to brand your business, to try to find clients, partners to refer you business. But you should really always be recruiting when you're networking, trying to identify that, rock star, right? That superstar that could, really help elevate your business, especially if you have, in the future, you need to hire somebody that's in sales. At a lot of networking events, you're going to see salespeople, you're going to meet salespeople, keep in contact with those that just are impressive, right? They present well, they're sharp, they seem to be, passionate about what they do and want to succeed. Because that's going to be a tricky one when you're ready to hire that first salesperson or that second salesperson. Another thing that's really important, with, current and future employees is providing some type of a growth opportunity. Now, as a small startup, you're probably thinking, well, I'm not going to need management or have, a lot of career pathing, in those early years, but, it could be growth by, lateral movement, you hire somebody in finance, maybe they give them some of the HR responsibilities or some of the marketing responsibilities, or, if you've got an engineer, maybe, give them something else, just to further expand, their skill set. You got to ask, right? Figure out what they want to do or what they might want to, take on as far as an additional responsibility. And then, just talk about the future. As you grow, do you have an idea on, what that looks like? What does your middle management or your upper management look like? And, that'll help at least give them something to strive for, provide mentorship as best you can to those employees. And as you grow a leadership team, making sure they're accessible to, the person that, is all the way at the bottom of the org chart, right? Kind of creating an opportunity for everybody to learn from one another. And it's, it's an opportunity for not only them to grow in their position, but also professionally, and really develop, kind of along the lines of where the company's going, right? Have them kind of be a part of that growth. As best you can support, education and training, whether it's, internally, like I said, or, externally, it's important for continuous development. That's, the one way people get better. And then at the end of the day, lay out some timelines with goals and, things for them to work towards, because, you can talk about it, but if there isn't a timeline and there aren't goals, it's hard for them to strive to achieve for those goals, right? And then to be able to track it is really important too when you're evaluating their performance.
Yeah, and I think training and development is something that you touched on there. It's really important. It's giving that opportunity to learn. Phil mentioned it, internal, external, and this can even get into things like helping employees out with their tuition, like if they're going back to school or doing some kind of class that is relevant to the work they're doing with your organization. There's different types of tuition reimbursement programs and just kind of ancillary benefits that play into that are an opportunity to really help those folks out, but also, keep them really invested in the company. A lot of people just don't take time to do this, especially when you're in growth mode, especially when you're in that startup phase, when, your attention span is always going to the fire that you have to put out in that moment. So I think it's worthwhile to take a moment and kind of let them shadow you, shadow other key performers, so they can see what does this look like. And Phil mentioned also, it's important to make sure that the goals that you set with your team, that they have really measurable benchmarks. Make sure that it's transparent. Like what are you looking to accomplish here? Make sure everyone's on the same page with, here's what a benchmark is. Here's how we're measuring it. And then, there are a lot of useful tools out there in terms of technology to kind of house that information and make it really accessible, and keep it safe, so that you and your employees can really refer back to it and leverage technology to see, okay, here's what the goal was, here's where we got, here's why you're exceeding it, here's why you're not, here's some things we can work on. But it keeps you and your team on the same page as you're going through this training, as you're going through these growth opportunities. It's just an easier way to manage that performance.
Yeah, and set really small goals for the daily goals. Have some weekly goals, some monthly, annual goals. If you're trying to drive sales, how many people do we want to talk to today? How many do we want to talk to weekly? How many meetings do we want to have? What's our ultimate close ratio for selling a product or a service? And how many meetings do we need to achieve those closes, right? So if you learn that you need to talk to 10 people to get a meeting and you need to have 5 meetings to earn a client, track those KPIs so that you can, monitor them and adjust kind of the goals. And then it kind of helps you with a roadmap on how to manage employees as you hire them. Because ultimately, knowing those indicators will make your jobs a lot easier. And knowing what it takes to get a client is really important.
So I'm looking at the clock right now. I know we're kind of bumping up into the end of our presentation here. I'm going to switch gears quickly and touch on a different but relevant topic, and then we can kind of close out and just open it up to questions and discussion. Phil and I wanted to, before we close out here, to touch on like a post-COVID work strategy, and holding employees accountable in today's environment. We, based on best practices, based on what we're seeing from our huge network of clients, it seems that hybrid work options, work from home options, these are things that they're not going away. All indications are that they're here to stay. So it's important to remain flexible with this. And I know that not everyone is on the same boat with the hybrid work options, work from home. But again, the millennials, Gen Z, these folks have kind of, in a short amount of time, come to expect this to be a part of today's workforce. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can provide flexibility that really keeps the right people happy. Whether it be 4-day work weeks, which is something that we're starting to see much more so in the United Kingdom and spreading to Europe, but that might be on the horizon here as well. But it's important to balance out this type of flexibility of hybrid and work from home, along with maintaining a culture. You need to schedule days in the office together, or if that's not possible, set Zoom meetings, weekly, monthly, whatever it is. But you need to have these sorts of touches, this open communication between the whole team to make sure everyone is staying in touch. Everyone has the same vision. Everyone's working towards the same goals. And this is where having a strong technology infrastructure can really help to keep everyone connected, keep everyone communicating, keep that culture working, even if folks are working remotely. And I mean, there's numerous options in opportunities to have technology that really supports this today. And that's a market that's really growing.
Yeah, and it's also important just to do check-ins with employees, you know, especially that first week. You know, how did it go? Was it what you expected? You know, what are your thoughts? A month from then, you know, maybe it's, you know, what do you like about what you're doing right now? How do you feel about the organization? What would you like to maybe see done differently? You know, getting their opinions, you know, maybe they can identify an area of improvement that you didn't think about. You know, and it's important to have those regular conversations because they feel included, that their opinions matter. You know, ultimately you're the decision maker, but you know, the more they feel included, the more they're going to give you that, we like to call it discretionary effort. And that means they're going to do more than you expect. And that's when you have a winning culture.
Right. That's a good point. I do want to touch very, very briefly here on compensation strategy, just because, you know, with the inflation we've seen in the last couple of years throughout not only the United States, but our global economy, compensation is changing. And I'm not just talking about dollar amounts, you know, whether it's salaries, hourly, whatever, which those are changing as well, especially for hourly workers. But you just want to make sure that you're staying competitive with comp. And we know how difficult it can be as a startup to be competitive with comp. And just keep in mind, there's other ways to do this. We have lots of companies that are clients at Insperity that write code. You know, they're software companies, and they're competing to hire against Google, against Apple. And they might be regional here, they might be somewhere else in the Midwest, but they know they can't compete with a base salary for a similar job as a Google or an Apple. But they also know that there's a lot of other ways to attract that same level of talent. Think about things like, should I provide an HSA? Is there an HRA to provide? Are there ancillary benefits I'm not thinking of that would make this job really attractive and keep me really competitive for this talent, even if I can't pay the same salary, just because, you know, we're not there yet. We're not there in our growth cycle. So there are a lot of creative ways to stay really competitive. You just got to know what's your market, what are salaries out there, what is competitive, and then if you can't be dollar on with the big guy, how do you back into it? Because you can. There's a lot of ways to do it.
Yeah, there's, you know, sweat equity is another term that's thrown around a lot, right? So set some goals with people, and maybe there's an equity bonus at the end of the year or at the end of a 3-year period. Maybe it's a certain amount of shares, you know, a part of the company. And when people are vested that way, they tend to, you know, continue to work harder, as long as they're bought into the, you know, mission, vision, values of the company. You know, and as you grow, it's important to leverage partners, you know, leverage and partner. You know, Corey talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's, you know, outsource. You know, don't try to do the things you're not good at, right? Whether it's finance, marketing, IT, HR, you know, all the things we talked about today are what we do for our clients. And, you know, some of our clients start at like 5 employees. So it's important to really think about, like, what are you best at? What do you think you can maybe take on? But don't limit yourself. And then who can you use, you know, to really help with some of those other areas?
Right. I know that we need to get into kind of opening up the floor for discussion. I just want to say, you know, again, thanks for letting us talk. But we know it's over your lunch. We know the roads are bad today, so hopefully everybody we're able to stay off the roads as much as possible. We're here to serve as a resource to Scale Up Milwaukee. We're here to serve as a resource to all of you. So I know we went over a lot of information here in a relatively short amount of time. So if anyone here on the call has any follow-up questions that you think of later, don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. We're more than happy to take some time to, you know, schedule a couple minutes for a one-on-one, answer any questions you guys have. And if you're interested in what we do, we can even run an analysis of what some of these types of HR infrastructure and benefits costs might look like for where you're at today. So thanks again.
Thank you, Wyatt and Phil. Is there any questions right away that you want to ask Wyatt or Phil?
I got a question, Deshaun.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing, guys? I had a quick question. So I operate a restaurant, and we was in that phase where we started off with a lot of friends and family, and then we learned very quickly that you can't depend on friends and family. So we had to outsource to other employees. My main question is, no, we definitely can't compete with the big guys. So, we still, we're in our third year, and we realized that, we can't offer the 14, 15, 16, $17, pay rate that a lot of other restaurants can. So, we try to attract them with different offers and things of that nature. But I want to know, do you all have any opinion on how to structure like a steady bonus or like a baseline bonus for, employees in the restaurant industry? And how can we compare and contrast that to the bonus we offer a manager that we will be seeking out?
It's a tough one. So it's kind of like a performance bonus, right? I think the first thing you got to do is think about, like, what can you afford, right? And then work backwards from there. So, I don't know how many employees you're thinking about doing this for, but, figure out a fair dollar amount that, that if they perform at a high level, it's going to bring in more revenue for the restaurant, right? Which hopefully will give you a little bit more and that you can put in that bucket. And then, determine that dollar amount, and maybe start small and see how it works. Maybe it's, for the week, do something really small, or maybe it's, you give them a bottle of wine at the end or something. And then it doesn't always have to be money.
Okay.
And then maybe work it into being a monthly bonus or a quarterly. But you've got to have set like parameters and something to measure their work by. It's not, I came in, and I worked my 8 hours exactly, and none of the customers left mad. It's got to be more than that.
Right.
Like how many customers did you have last week? Well, let's try to get one more or two more or three more. What's going to drive obviously the revenue within your organization, and then profitability comes from service, right? In your business, if somebody's happy, they're going to leave a bigger tip, and then they're going to come back again. So it's a tough one to measure because, the easiest job to measure when it comes to bonuses is sales, right? You do more, you make more, right? So it's tricky. But I'm a big fan, and I do this for my team. And, we do contests all the time. And, it might be pick something on Amazon that's $30. Well, maybe you've been thinking about buying something, but you're like, I don't want to waste my money on that. Well, maybe now you can get it. Or, it's a bottle of wine, or it's a ticket to a show, or, something. And what I always like to do is just kind of ask people, what do you like? Right. So that I'm not giving them something that they'll never use. Right. Or if somebody doesn't drink, you don't want to give them wine. So little things like that, that speaks to just kind of something unique that you might not get in a big company.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Love that. And Katarina had a question as well. I said that right, correct?
Yes, thanks to Sean. My name is Katarina Colon. I'm a labor and employment attorney here in Milwaukee, but I'm also an entrepreneur and thinking about starting my own business outside of the legal field because it can get a little dry. I won't lie to you. It's fun when you're working with employees, but the contract review can be rough. And I just wanted to add to Brandon's question that what we've seen some clients do is offer bonuses for attendance. And so like Phil said, it doesn't have to be a massive amount, but if you're struggling with having people show up for their shifts, which I know is a common issue, you can offer a bonus for, if you've appeared for consecutive number of shifts, then you can be eligible for this bonus and
on time.
Yeah, right. Well, that's discretionary. But I also had a question for our masters. And I was wondering, in your opinion, when a small business where resources are limited, like at what point do they reach out to an HR specialist as opposed to an attorney? Because I know there's a lot of crossover there. And we deal with a lot of the same questions, but I think knowing like the scope of what each person can provide is very, very helpful.
Yeah, that's a really tough one.
I was gonna say, but from one former attorney to you, Katarina, a current, I actually practiced law for 7 years myself. I'm gonna let Phil go, but I'll give you the lawyer answer first. It depends.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it really does. So, when we think about what we do for our clients, we try to prevent things getting to the point where, a lawyer has to get involved, right? So it's being proactive in making sure, they're in compliance and they're doing the right things. And, before they go ahead and fire somebody, that they've taken the steps necessary to protect themselves as a business owner before they fire that person. So it's more on the education and the process and, what's right and wrong. What does the state say? What does the government say, right? It's like from an HR standpoint. So our goal is to eliminate that from ever happening, right? But at the end of the day, we have clients that don't listen, and then they, get mad one day and they terminate somebody, or they say something that offends them. So on the front end too, it's, and this isn't very expensive to my knowledge, is having people understand the general, workplace ethic type stuff, right? How am I supposed to treat people? What's discrimination? What's sexual harassment? There are videos online. There are videos that are accessible in training and development kind of platforms, like what we offer. Once somebody watches a video, takes the test, and they check off on it, it adds a layer of protection, right, to that organization, because somebody says, yeah, I know what's right and wrong. And now you're a little bit more protected. I'm sure you've got a lot of good stories, Katrina.
Right. It's always it's always hard to determine when outside counsel needs to get involved. But like Phil said, we're really seeking to be proactive with compliance with state, federal, local rules. And at that point, I think generally those are HR compliance questions. Those are not legal counsel, especially outside legal counsel questions. It's just usually, from what we see, usually it's when somebody's filed something in court, right? It's like when somebody has initiated the litigation process, is when it's got to be outside counsel.
Pay is a big one right now, right? And it has been for years, right?
Right.
Exempt versus non-exempt, overtime rules. There's a lot of suits out there for back pay and
wage and hour cases.
Yeah. So just kind of knowing those basic laws, like if somebody should be exempt or not exempt, can save you a lot of time and headaches.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for that question, Katarina. There's a question in the chat, and it's from Dan. Are you able to help customers brainstorm, analyze some ancillary benefits like you talked about that they are not offering already?
Yes, and not only to customers, but to prospective customers. So when we meet with a business, talk about what they're doing today, look at their costs, their overhead, right? Because, paying somebody $20 an hour isn't all that's not your only cost for that employee, right? Your burden is the taxes, it's the overhead, it's benefits, right? It's other things that are going to be costly to the business. So it's not just their salary. It's usually about 20 to 25% more than what their salary is. But yeah, we can go through benefit strategies. Maybe you can't offer health and benefits from a budget standpoint right away, but maybe you can offer basic life insurance. It's pretty reasonable. So there's a lot of things that we can do. And then we have partners too. We're pretty robust. So most of our service offerings come with medical benefits and life and dental and vision and eye and vision and those things. But we have partners that can help with that small businesses. Like what one benefit can I offer that's not going to cost me too much money? And that could be vision and dental, right? Or life insurance. Life insurance is like $5 a month, right? Basic life. So things like that we can talk through and put a financial analysis together and say, look, this is what's going to cost you above what you're doing today, whether you do it now or down the road. So at least you have something to look forward to.
And before the lock was go, just to follow up on Dan's question, is there any recommendation to hourly versus salary? Like, how do you guys kind of do that when companies want to hire employees?
Well, I think it starts with what's legal, right? So, are they on a shift? Are they eligible for overtime? There are certain laws, and I'm not up to speed on all of them, but that revolve around like when you have to offer benefits. I know, once you get to 50 employees, you have to, right? That's federal law, but there are other things, as it relates to exempt and non-exempt, and there are other things as it relates to part-time and full-time, right? So, you can offer benefits to your employees, but if somebody's not working at least 30 hours a week, let's say, they're not eligible for full-time benefits. So there's also the performance side of it, right? So depending on the type of job, a salaried professional, usually you're going to pay them a salary and they get the same dollar amount, but they're probably the expectations might be, especially in a small business, you're going to work more than 40 hours a week. But once you get to that hourly, now once they put an extra hour in, you're paying them more money. So it can get out of control if you're not prepared for it or tracking it. In the multiple companies that I've worked for and started up, we typically didn't do any hourlies because, it was really like, hey, like this is what we have. This is the vision. There's some other things attached to it, like bonuses or equity. But our HR experts would probably know the most about like kind of what's legal and what's not legal. There's probably a lot of stuff that I missed too.
Thanks for that. And the Lockwoods. And hold on 1 second. Rita, are you okay? You said you can't hear? Well, you probably can't hear if I said that, but so you're on mute right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say for anyone who's having audio issues throughout the presentation or the Q&A, the audio is being recorded and we will make sure that's available for a recap after. So keep that in mind as well.
Thanks, Jared. And the Lockwoods?
Hello, everyone.
Yes, hello.
How everybody's doing?
Hey.
We have a question. We ran into a dilemma. We were speaking with the attorney last week when he came into the office, and we were going to hire subcontractors. And he came to the point. He said we have to hire employees. It's best for us to start hiring employees. We don't know if we should hire an HR team to hire that person for us because of the type of work we're doing with the accounting, because we have so much personal information of our clients, and we don't know how to go about trying to find the right applicant, or if how we should go about doing that. And we just need a little advice on that.
Yeah, so there's certain laws with regards to who's a subcontractor versus who's not, right? Simple things like if they're wearing a polo with your logo on it, I mean that they're working for you, right? If they have your company equipment they're using, stuff like that. When it comes to when you say using HR to hire somebody, you're thinking of a staffing company?
Yeah, probably. I mean, because we figured doing background checks and all of that, and we're just trying to get a little more insight on how to make sure it's done the legal and the correct way.
Yeah, we're not sure where to start.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger conversation that maybe we could have offline. Temporaries are a good route to go. They give you flexibility. You can kind of try before you buy. It tends to cost a little bit more. It's usually about 40 to 50% or even more than what you typically pay them because there's overhead and taxes and all of that. But why don't we kind of take a little bit more time and dig into what you're ultimately trying to accomplish? We can make some recommendations.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
To Sean, I don't know what the easiest way is to do this. Feel free to share our email addresses. Otherwise, we can, I don't know, we're available. I think that you have all our information. We can do it too.
Yeah, we can do that. And I think, Jared, if you can put that in the recap video, or at the end, if you want to type in your information in the chat so they can have it right away, that would be great as well.
Yeah, anyone that wants to have a 20-30 minute conversation, just shoot Wyatt an email and we'll get you set up on Zoom and we'll just talk through it.
You set it up real quick. Any other questions?
So there's one thing we didn't talk about much, and we may have touched on it. I think it's really important, and it goes back to our mission statement, right? Which is the end of it is so communities prosper, right? So, be involved, whether it's in the nonprofit space, volunteering, that's important from a cultural standpoint, especially the younger generation. They want to feel like they're contributing to the community that they live in, so bring them into something. If maybe they've never volunteered, bring them to one of your events, or have them find something that they're passionate about and kind of work with them so that they can get involved. The reward is unbelievable, as probably a lot of you know. And when you work for a company that believes in it, that's another way to retain talent. It really is. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Phil and Wyatt. And I guess I have one more question. I'm not sure if you guys answered this before, but you talk about recruiting. Is there certain places that you feel is, I wouldn't say necessarily better than one or the other, but you talk about LinkedIn and Indeed and job fairs and let's just say JS Online, or even on your website, you have your careers there. Is there places that you would kind of say, hey, these are the places that we found other employers or entrepreneurs who found the most success from these websites? And I know you talked about the Black Book, but outside of those and the people recruiting others, is there a place?
Yeah, I mean, the Black Book's the best, right? The first place that everybody should go. And it's not just your network, it's the network of the people that you know. So you always got to ask that follow-up question when you call somebody, hey, do you know a good, accountant? Or if they are an accountant, hey, would you be open to this opportunity? Who do you know? And maybe who do they know? Take it a step further.
And honestly, like we're living proof of that, right, Phil? I mean,
I found Wyatt through a banker that I knew. And it's taking that question one step further. As far as sources, I would guess that most of you, aren't going to spend 20, 30 grand paying a recruiter to find you somebody. So you can kind of eliminate that, right? Indeed's probably the cheapest and kind of the broadest spectrum as far as identifying talent. The challenge is what you're going to weed through tons of resumes, right?
Yep.
I'm a big advocate for specific searches on LinkedIn. So another thing to do is, first of all, you should be linking up with anybody and everybody you meet. And then, once you're connected with somebody, you can see who they're connected with and who they're connected with. And you can ask for introductions that way. And then you can cold outreach to some people too, that might have a similar background. It's so easy to search, in the industries that you work in, the size of companies that you work in, the job titles. Those are probably the best. Networking events, you'd have to get really lucky to meet that next hire, when you need them at that moment. Yeah. But networking events are good to build for the future. So you just build relationships and build that Rolodex.
Perfect. Yeah, I think LinkedIn can be more effective if you have a nice network of people that you're linked up to. And like Phil says, you should be leveraging.
Wyatt and I mean, we have thousands each. So it's you can even see who we know, right?
Yeah.
And we're not famous or anything.
You're not praying for the premium.
Don't want to be famous. Don't want to be famous.
And they ask you to pay for every week. No, thanks, Wyatt. Thanks, Phil. This was awesome. This is very informational, very resourceful. I put your email in the chat, Wyatt, and hopefully everyone has that. And again, if you can reach out to them for extra questions or any added advice. Again, the Power Hour is a focus for you as entrepreneurs, as business owners, and people that are trying to transition to business owners or what that may be like. So we appreciate you. We thank you. Again, follow us, Scale Up Milwaukee. For if you're not a member, become a member. We'd love to have you as a member of Scale Up and to see you at events that we will have for 2023. There's another Power Hour happening February 24th. With Riverworks on taxes, and specifically how to keep more money in your pocket with doing your taxes. So we appreciate you. If you have any questions from your Jared, please send us an email as well. Again, enjoy your day. Stay safe out there in the snow. Thank you to Wyatt and Phil again and Insperity for doing this. Appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having us.